guys, and welcome back to Jess Reads Romance. I'm Jessin, and today I'm going to be doing the anti-TBR tag. This is something that I actually had planned for a while because I originally saw Mina Reads do this tag and I did all the questions and I answered them, and then I ended up by never even filming it. I just had it as part of my notes of like, here are the videos ideas that you can do. I never did it. And then recently Jess for Peacelovebookxo posted hers and I was like, I need some video ideas where I can just sit down and like immediately do the video, and it's very easy for me because, as I keep saying in a lot of my videos, I'm very busy with school, and so I was just like, I was very much in need of an easy video, and I'm like, I already have all these books planned. I have all the questions answered. What an easy video for me to sit down and film. And I'm like, yeah, we're doing it. This tag was created by Nicole and her books. I'll have the original video linked down below, as well as Mina and Jess's video for their anti-TBR tag. Okay, let's get started. The first question is, what's a popular book that everyone loves that you have no interest in reading? So I have two of these, and it's the same reason why I don't really want to read them. Beach Read by Emily Henry. I have no interest in reading this one. It toes the line too closely with women's fiction. It's split so 50-50 with people saying like this is a definite romance and people saying like no, it's women's fiction. And it's just, I don't know, I just don't have an interest in reading it, even though I know a lot of people love it. For some reason I never was tempted to pick it up anyway and try it out for myself and see. So I'm probably not going to read Beach Read. I'd be surprised if I picked this book up. The second one is The Flat Chair by Beth O'Leary. Now I know that the second one, I think it's The Switch, is 100% more women's fiction, but The Flat Chair, everyone was freaking out about it whenever it came out, and I wanted it, and I got it from my library, and I never ended up by listening to the audio, so I just kind of like let it lapse. I checked it out, never looked at it, never thought about reading it, so I probably will never read The Flat Chair by Beth O'Leary. And honestly, for a lot of these questions, I think that there's a lot of popular books in this that fit other questions better, but it's something that like other people really love that I just don't have an interest in reading. The next question is a classic book or author you don't have an interest in reading. All of them? No, seriously, I think that's my answer, is all of them. I don't have an interest as an adult to read the classics. I read them when I was in school. I liked some whenever I was in school. I disliked some whenever I was in school. Like, there were just some that like I was like, wow, this was definitely worth the read, and some that I still have very negative feelings towards having to read that as like assigned reading. I went through a phase in college where I wanted to read some classics, like Jane Eyre was never assigned reading, and Juliet loaned me her copy. I never read Jane Eyre. Like, oh, I tried to, and then I was like, I'm so bored. I don't want to read this. And I tried to read War and Peace, and that did not work out. I tried to read Anna Karenina. That did not work out. So I just discovered that I don't want to read classics. And the thing about it is, I definitely didn't want to force myself to read these classics knowing that I wasn't enjoying the reading process, because to me, reading is fun. I enjoy reading, but I don't enjoy reading classic books. And if I was forcing myself to read them just to say that I've read the classics, then that wasn't a good enough reason for me to continue through these really thick books. So that's my reason for not reading the classics. If you like the classics, that's completely a-okay, but like, I'm just never going to be a person that's going to have to reread classics. I'm not a person that's like, oh, I want to read Jane Austen. I'm completely fine with watching the adaptations. Same goes for War and Peace. I absolutely love the 2016 adapted version with Lily Collins. There's so many Lilies. What's the Lily that I'm thinking of? Lily James, that's her name. And then Paul Dano. Paul Dano was phenomenal in this series. Absolutely loved him. And whatever the actor who played Andre, loved him as well. But the point being, I'd rather watch adaptations of classics than actually force myself to read them. And that's how I feel about it. Okay, so the next two questions can be separate or they can go together. So I have an author whose books you have no interest in reading, or a problematic author whose books you have no interest in reading. So I have like two that are non-problematic authors. At least I don't think that they have problematic things going on, things surrounding them. And then I have a couple that are problematic and I don't want to read. So the first one is Jasmine Guillory. I don't have an interest in reading Jasmine Guillory. I think I might have tried one of her books a long time ago and it just wasn't really working out for me, and so I DNF'd and I never had an interest in reading her again. And I know that a lot of people say that hers read like women's fiction, so I'm probably never going to read a Jasmine Guillory. And then another author is Colleen Hoover. Now technically I've read a Colleen Hoover. I read It Ends With Us. But so many people, I get so many recommendations, and I always feel bad when people recommend me an author or a book that I'm like, I'm just never going to read this. And Colleen Hoover is one of those authors that people are like, try Ugly Love, or try, I know a lot of people like Layla, and then try, you know, a bunch of her other ones that people are like, these are like really great reads. Ugly Love has been recommended to me so many times. I have the don't wants when I see Colleen Hoover. I'm just like, I don't feel like reading that. After reading It Ends With Us, what made me not want to pick up another Colleen Hoover is because it was given to me and saying like, this is one of my favorite romances of all time. I'm pretty sure I mentioned this in a video before, and I would say that this book is women's fiction like all the way, not categorized as a romance at all. And it was good, and I was like, wow, that like really got me in the feels. But as a romance, it fell completely flat. I've said this in another video before, but it's true. Okay, 2 more authors is Megan March, and I know that Jessica mentioned Megan March as well. I actually read one of her books at the request of my friend last year before she did her problematic post on Instagram and started popping off. But one of my friends really liked her books. They're her New Orleans books. And so I read the first one and I actually did not like it. I gave it like a 3 star and I was like, I'm just never going to read it again. And then she became problematic and I was like, well, good. I didn't want to read her anyway anymore. The next one is S.M. Soto. Crazily enough, I had just found her books the week before the plagiarism scandal. I saw her books, and I first look at books and I see their book covers and it's like, that draws me in. And so she had a lot of really beautiful book covers and I was very much planning to read S.M. Soto. And then it came out that she plagiarized, and I do not support authors who plagiarize, because the authors whose original work was plagiarized, they worked very hard on that novel, and nobody should be making money off of somebody else's hard work, and I think that that's absolutely disgusting, so I definitely won't be reading any S.M. Sotos. Okay, so the next one is an author you have read a couple of books from and have decided their books are not from you. I have a lot of books in this category, actually. Some of you may know I have a 3-book policy. If I read 3 books by a certain author and I don't like any of them, that's like my limit. And I'm pretty sure that I will never pick up another book by them, because 3 in a row mediocre books that I just feel very mad about, that's not a good enough reason for me to continue reading an author. It means that I'm going to find more books that I don't like by them than books that I would like by them. And I just don't have the time to dedicate to authors to go like deep dive into their backlist and be like, oh, this is the one book that they've written that I really liked. And it's just, yeah, it's completely personal. Everybody has a different reading experience, so this is absolutely not meant to I forgot to say that. This is not meant to offend anybody if these are like your favorite authors. These are just my personal feelings when it comes to reading. Nobody is going to like the exact same books, the exact same tropes, the exact same authors. So anyway, and a lot of these authors, I still follow them on Instagram because I think that they're really cool people. I just don't like their books. Like, it's not a personal thing against the author themselves. It's just their writing's just not for me. So the first one is Megan Quinn. I've tried to read a lot of Megan Quinn's, actually more than 3, and all of them have landed in the 3-star range, and so for me that's just not a good sign, and I would rather be reading something else that would be potential 4 and 5-star books. So Megan Quinn, and her covers always draw me in. Always. She has the most beautiful covers. I love them so much. And I'm tempted a lot just to pick up another Megan Quinn just because of her covers. But I know that I've had such bad luck and I just don't like them. The second one, recently I decided that I was no longer going to try Sarah McLean. Again, this is another author that I'm like, I really love. I follow them on Instagram. I love listening to her podcast and I love watching her live videos and hear her talking and gushing about books that she loves. But for some reason, her writing is just not for me. I don't mesh well with her historical romances. I've not found any that I'm like, I'm in love with these books. And I know that she's a huge favorite of everybody's, but it's just not for me. And I'm no longer going to purchase her books and then ended up by not liking them. The next one is Alicia Ray. I was recommended a few years ago, 2 years ago, to read her Forbidden Heart series, that I would like really love it. And I think I gave the first book 3 stars and the second book 3 stars as well. I don't even know if I rated the second book on Goodreads at all. And then when an arc came up on NetGalley for The Right Swipe, I was like, okay, well maybe I'll try one of the books that she's written more recently. It's a different series, and so maybe I'll like this one better, because sometimes that happens. Sometimes if I read an author's backlist, their older books aren't for me and their newer books are more my speed or more my style. Or vice versa, that I've liked their backlist and I don't like their new books. It just depends. It all depends. So anyway, I requested The Right Swipe and I really did not like that book either. So I was like, okay, I just don't have any interest in continuing to read Alicia Ray. I really like her. She makes some really funny Instagram videos, and I think she might be on TikTok now too. And I love watching her. Like, again, nothing personally against her. I just don't like the books. Okay, I have 3 more. I have 3 more books that I'm just like, these authors definitely I just don't want to read anymore. So one of them is Lucy Score. Lucy Score I've tried to like. Actually, 2 of her books have been voted on for our Patreon exclusive reviews. That means that our patrons recommend and suggest books. We have a poll and everyone votes on the book that we'll be reviewing together. We did one of her, it's like the whiskey books. It's like that series. It's written by different authors for the series. So we read that book, and I can't remember the name of it. And then we also read Riley Thorne and the Dead Guy Next Door. That one was probably my favorite Lucy Score that I've read. And then I tried to read Rock Bottom Girl, and I DNF'd that book so fast. So again, Lucy Score, an author that constantly gets recommended to me, saying that this is one of their favorite authors on KU and stuff, because everyone knows that I like to read KU books, but I'm not gonna pick it up, and I feel so bad because I'm just like, I don't want to comment back and tell people like, thanks for the recommendation, but I don't want to read that. But I also don't want people to think that I'm ignoring them, because I'm not. The next is Kristen Ashley. So I was just talking about this with Jen because she's about to read Kristen Ashley. I think because Heather from Hia Booktubes, that's one of her favorite authors, and I know that Kristen Ashley is a lot of people's favorite authors. I discovered Kristen Ashley when Juliet recommended her to me, and I think it was around like the Game of Thrones time, and Juliet discovered The Golden Dynasty. So I read that book. I liked it pretty much, and I think I gave that one 4 stars. And then Juliet went into her Dream Man series. I binged those, and it was at a time where Juliet was the only person giving me recommendations. So I was like, they're all in my library. I'm just gonna check them out and read them. So I read her Dream Man series, the spinoff, the like chaos novels, and I've read some of her Rock Chicks books, and I've also read The Gamble. So I've read quite a few, and I know that I was definitely reading those because I didn't have any other book recommendations, and I thought just like, why not read those? That's why I've read so many Kristen Ashley's. I just find her writing style to be extremely repetitive. All of her heroes sound exactly the same. She has some writing quirks that are in every single one of her books, and basically if I wanted to, I could write a book pretending to be Kristen Ashley. And I'm pretty confident that I can mimic her writing style because it's so repetitive. But anyway, I still have books by her that I like, but going forward, like I think Slow Burn was recommended to me, and I was like, I don't want to read it. I don't want to read any of those. So that's another author that I don't want to read. And the last one is QB Tyler, another recent author that I've done the 3 strikes with. I've read Forget Me Not. I really hated that book. Love Unexpected, which was for the Taboo Book Club. That was the latest one that I read, and I was just like, oh, I really hate this book so much. And there was another one that I read by QB Tyler. And it almost feels like you feel like you're a failure when so many people are telling you that this is one of their favorite authors, and you keep trying to like them, and then it just doesn't jive with you, and it's like, is something wrong with me? And it's like, no, it's just everyone has different reading experiences. And so yeah. So moving on to the next question is a genre you have no interest in, or a genre you tried to get into but couldn't. Romance specific genre, I don't know if I love romantic suspense. I don't think I've read enough to say that I definitively don't like romantic suspense, but I might not like it. So hilariously, at the beginning of 2021, I had a video planned. I wanted to read some books that were really hyped in 2020, and I didn't get a chance to get to. Whiteout was one of those. I started Whiteout and I was quite bored with it. The suspense wasn't drawing me in. So, and I feel like I felt like that for other romantic suspenses where I was just like a little bit bored with the storylines. So I don't know if that one's for me in the romance subgenre. Gothic romance, I don't think I've tried any gothic romances. I might own a few though, but I don't know if that one's for me as well. And then it goes without saying, I'm not a huge fan of reading outside the romance genre. I'm not saying that I never would, because some of my historical fantasies technically can't be considered romances. They're really, like Juliette Marie, I wouldn't be like, yeah, this is like 100% a classic romantic style novel. It's definitely heavily focused on the fantasy elements and does have a romantic backstory. But again, so I do kind of read out of the romance genre, but not really. Definitely won't be reading any women's fiction. If this video does not clue you into that fact, I really get annoyed when books are marketed to me as romances and they turn out to be women's fiction. It's very annoying to me. Okay, so it says a book you've bought but will never read. And it can be an unhauled book or that you return to the library unread. I definitely I returned The Architect by Nikki Sloan, but because I was just like, I'm definitely not going to be finishing that. But I do have a couple other books that I bought and I probably won't ever read. The first one is A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire. I bought this book immediately before I read From Blood and Ash. And I was so convinced because this was such a popular romance series and everyone said that this was their favorite, or a lot of people said it was their favorite. So I bought the first two because I was like, yay, a new fantasy novel. Like, I'm so excited. And I ended up by really disliking From Blood and Ash. I was in the minority and I had already bought the second book and I was like, ugh, why do I do this to myself? Why do I buy the books before I read them? Like, don't buy the second book if you've not read the first book, Jessen. Just common sense. Obviously, I have none. Oh, this one, I pre-ordered Big Bad Wolf by Salika Snyder. I pre-ordered that for Pharaoh Feb. I adore the book cover. I love shifter romances, but in the middle of Pharaoh Feb, this was on other people's list to read, and I saw multiple people who I trust their reviews and recommendations that were very disappointed with this book, and they were disappointed with the lack of romance in the book and that there was multiple points of views, like not just like there wasn't just like a main couple. This is what I'm hearing from other people. Again, I bought this book and I have not picked it up at all. So based on those reviews, I will not be reading this book. And then I have two more. So I got really excited when I discovered T.L. Swan. I love The Stopover. I love The Takeover. Those were like amazing books to me. And so I went in her backlist and got some of her indie published books. And I bought Play Along, The Italian, Our Way. I think those are the three that I bought. I started reading Play Along and I pretty much DNF'd it. So I bought that one and I probably won't be reading that. I finished The Italian, but it took everything in me to finish that book. And now I have Our Way, which again, the story intrigues me, just like for Play Along, just like for The Italian. But I have such a case of don't wants to read that one just because I know that I have better luck with her books that are published with Montlake, that are published traditionally, because there is more that goes into her editing process that Montlake makes her do. Then whenever she's an indie, she can decide how many rounds of editing and what types of editing that she wants to do for those books. And I just feel like I like the more edited books, or at least she has a phenomenal editor that's working with her in Montlake that I'm just like, yes. Anyway, so I probably won't read those. But I will be reading the next book in the Miles High Club series and whatever else she's going to be publishing in Montlake. Okay, so next question is a series you have no interest in reading or a series you have started and DNF. So definitely the Bromance Book Club. I read the first book in that series and I really loved the premise of it. But again, this was a 3-star book for me. I'm not going to say I'm never going to read her books. But will I read any more in the Bromance Book Club series? No. I'm just not. I just don't want to. The next one. So sorry, Jen. I read Outlander before it was turned into a TV series. This was a book that I kind of started back in like, when was that? Like 2007 or so. We had like a private Facebook group. We had a book club and Outlander was our first series that we were reading together. I read the first 3 books and I really enjoyed them. There was lots of angst, lots of heartache. And then once it got to book 4, I was very annoyed. And book 4 is when it catches up to kind of where the TV show is at now, when they're in America. and I did not like that one, but I had already bought, like I ordered all the books that were out at the moment, and so I think I had purchased Drums of Autumn. Is it Drums? No. Fiery Cross. Fiery Cross? Don't remember. The point being, by book 4, I was kind of exhausted by the story and how these characters are just constantly tortured, both of them. So I went go read spoilers for Fiery Cross, and I was so glad that I didn't pick up this book, because the things that happen in Fiery Cross, I was like, not again. No, stop doing it to my characters. Ugh, frustrated. And then also I had looked up for spoilers for the next one as well, or maybe it was the Lord Grey one. Looked up spoiler for that as well. There's something, spoiler. There is a spoiler right here. Spoiler. Again, I've not read these books, so I'm going based off of everything that I'm talking about is things that I've read by other reviewers, and it hasn't even been recent. This was like years ago that I went and spoiled myself for these books to confirm that these books were not what I wanted to read. But anyway, very big spoiler. So I found out that Claire got raped in, I think, Fiery Cross, and Jamie's response is, let's have sex because if you get pregnant, it could be mine. And I was like very turned off by that. And then something happens, possibly a fire. And I think in the show, Brianna, the reason why she goes back in time is to warn her parents that there's going to be fire. And I think they think Jamie's dead. And somehow Claire and Lord Grey sleep together, but they hate each other. And I'm just like, what the actual fuck? And spoiler. So that's why I will no longer be reading the Outlander series, even though I watched the TV series in season 2, chef's kiss, perfection, loved it. I didn't finish the most recent season though, because I kind of got a little bit bored with that one as well, which is where I got bored with in the books. But anyway, and then finally, the Fever series. So the Fever series by Karen Marie Moning, I was completely obsessed with these books. These books are my life at one point. I was reading them with Juliet as they were coming out. We were making predictions, like what could Barron's possibly be, because he was in Big Mystery, and like what's Michaela Lane's role going to be? How is she going to change with all this like Fae and stuff? And like, ooh, Danny's gonna get a spinoff. And I love the first 5 books, and they tell a complete story. It's about Mac and Barron's, and they are left off in a very satisfying way. Like I was like, I'm good with that being Mac and Barron's story, and I'm good with never having them be central characters again. I'm cool with them popping up, but like I don't need the story to focus on them again. She ends up by doing that. So she wrote Iced. I liked it. I was here for like the build up to Danny, because Danny is a 14-year-old girl in Ice, so I was here for the build-up. I knew something was going to happen. I knew that, spoilers again for people who don't want to know, I knew that Danny was somehow going to get aged up really quickly, and it was all there. The mirrors, time passes differently when you're in the mirrors, and I was like, she's going to go in the mirrors and come back and she's going to be an adult. So that actually does happen, but it happened in a way that I did not enjoy. I didn't enjoy Danny's story arc, so I tried to force myself to read more books in that series, and I think the last one that I read was Fever Song, which was a Mac centrally focused book. I've had people message me since then saying like, oh, you should read High Voltage because it really like picks back up right there. I was almost tempted to read High Voltage because I really love the cover. Like the cover's really pretty. And then recently A Kingdom of Shadow and Light came out, and like I still have no interest in reading it because I did not like how KMM started messing with Mac and Barron's. It was like such a regression of character for Mac that I was very upset by it. So it kind of ruined how I felt about the original 5 books in the series, honestly. So that was incredibly disappointing for it to go from one of my favorite series of all time to something that I like honestly have no desire to reread. And I'm a huge rereader. I love reading books that I have loved and given 5 stars, because I'm a person that if I read it again, I get all those same feelings, and it's really exciting. I still read her historical romances, her historical fantasies with the Highlanders and the time traveling. Those are really good, and I still love those. They hold up a lot better than the Fever series, in my opinion. And the last one is a new release you have no interest in reading. There's a lot of new releases that I just don't feel like I'll ever pick up. I'm looking at new releases right now. First Comes Like, which is an Alicia Ray book. That's one that I probably won't ever pick up. Oh, One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. I think I'm saying her last name right. I'm not sure. I didn't really love Red, White, and Royal Blue, so I don't want to pick up One Last Stop. Oh, and The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren. I didn't mention Christina Lauren at all in this video, but she's another author where I've liked some of her books, but more often than not, they're just okay with me, and they're getting they are very women's fiction-y now, so I don't plan on reading The Soulmate Equation, even though I really like the cover. Oh, and another one. I didn't mention this author as well. I have a lot of authors on my I don't plan on reading other books by them again. Katie Robert is another one that's really popular that I just don't have an interest in reading again. She has these stellar covers that really make you want to read it, like The Air. It's no, I think it's just Air, because the first one's Sacrifice, which I did read. Air. Look at this. I'm popping up this cover. Love it. I already wrote it down on one of my favorite covers of 2021. Absolutely love it. And then the other one was like Neon Gods or whatever. Love that book cover as well. I just don't like the stories. I don't like the writing, so I won't pick up another Katie Robert. Anyway, okay, so this is it for the anti-TBR tag. Again, completely personal opinions. I hope you're not offended by anything that I've said about an author, if they're your favorite. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up, and if you're not already subscribed to my channel, make sure you subscribe to get notified of any future videos that I do. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, life's better with little HEA. Bye, guys.